3rd December 1984, where one of the worst industrial disasters in history occurred in Bhopal, India. A pesticide factory owned by Union Carbide leaked a deadly chemical gas into the city during the night. The gas, called methyl isocyanate, escaped after water entered a storage tank and caused a dangerous chemical reaction. Because safety systems were poorly maintained, the toxic gas spread quickly into nearby residential areas. Most people were asleep when the gas leaked. Thousands woke up choking, struggling to breathe, and running in panic. Many died within hours, while hundreds of thousands were exposed to the poison. Survivors suffered serious health problems, including lung damage, eye injuries, and long-term illness. Even years later, many people continue to suffer from the effect of the gas. The Bhopal gas tragedy revealed major failure in industrial safety and corporate responsibility. Today, it remains a tragic reminder of importance of strict safety regulation to protect human life.
We will talk about chemical involved. The chemical involved in this case is methyl isocyanate, or we call it MIC. A tank E610 contains 40 tons of liquid methyl isocyanate. Is an organic compound with the molecular formula CH3NCO. It is extremely toxic, volatile, and flammable colorless liquid. In this case, the MIC will react with the water. So, when MIC react with the water, it can cause a heat because of the exothermic reaction. When MIC react with the water, it will produce methylamine and carbon dioxide. Expose this gas in a long time will cause a danger to human. This gas can absorb to the skin and clothes. For the symptom experienced by victim is coughing, eyes burning, and hard to breathe. After the medical checkup, the victim has a symptom of mitochondrial, or we call it MIT. MIT can affecting a cell and organs. It can cause a pulmonary edema, which is the lungs full up with fluid, and the person drowned, unable to breathe. The victim also suffer cerebral edema, which is swelling of brain due to excess fluid accumulation. Pathologists describe that the victim blood is having the consistency of currant jelly. So we know that this chemical is danger to human.
Now let's look for the properties of methyl isocyanate, or MIC. Physically, MIC is a colorless liquid or gas. It has a very sharp pungent odor that makes it highly irritating to the respiratory system. One of its most dangerous physical traits is its density. It is roughly twice as heavy as air. Because of this, during the leak, the gas did not dissipate into the sky. Instead, it remained close to the ground, spreading rapidly through the surrounding neighborhoods. Chemically, MIC is extremely volatile. It has National Fire Protection Association (NFPA) flammability rating of 3, meaning it can ignite under almost any normal temperature condition. Its flash point is remarkably low, around 19 degrees Fahrenheit, which is well below freezing. Next is the hazards of methyl isocyanate. What made tank 610 so dangerous was MIC its high reactivity. It reacts violently with water, oxidizes acids, and even certain metals like iron and copper. These reactions are highly exothermic, meaning they generate massive amounts of heat, which eventually led to the thermal runaway reaction that caused the disaster. When MIC is exposed to high temperatures, specifically above 200 degrees Celsius, it decomposes into even more lethal secondary toxins, which are hydrogen cyanide and phosgene. Hydrogen cyanide acts as a systemic poison, preventing the body cells from using oxygen, leading to immediate suffocation. Phosgene acts as a choking agent. It reacts with fluids in the lungs to form hydrochloric acid, causing pulmonary edema, where the lungs literally fill with the survivors. The acute effects were devastating. Low concentrations caused severe irritation to the eyes, nose, and throat. In many cases, it led to corneal opacities and temporary or permanent blindness. High concentrations resulted in over 500 deaths over pulmonary edema alone in the immediate aftermath. Beyond the immediate death, which are estimated between 3,800 and 20,000, the survivors faced a lifetime of chronic health issues. These include fibrosis and chronic lung disease, liver and kidney impairment, and significant reproductive issues, including increased rates of miscarriage and stillbirth. Perhaps most concerning is the genotoxicity. Evidence shows that MIC exposure caused chromosomal damage, altering the very genetic makeup of survivors and significantly increased the long-term risk of cancer.
I'm going to talk about safe handling, storage and emergency measure for this chemical. First, it is important to store the chemical in cool, dry and well-ventilated area. It must be always closed tightly to prevent water and heat from enter the chemical. This reaction between the water and the heat can occur and produce a very dangerous reaction. When handling this chemical, you need to wear glove, PEE, and safety goggle. Respiratory protection also must be used for prevent the chemical from entering the skin, eye, and lung for the worker. Even with precaution, the accident can be happen. So knowing what to do is very crucial. If someone have been inhaled the chemical, they must be moved into the fresh air immediately and seek the medical attention that needed. For skin and eye contact, they need to be rinsed thoroughly with water, and if it ingests, the urgent care must be given to the worker. Fire safety is just as important as the medical attention. In case of the fire occur, you need to use dry chemical extinguisher or CO2 carbon or foam. Never use water because that could make the thing get worse. Today, I'm gonna talk about chemical regulation in laboratories and industry. Chemical regulation in laboratories and industry are extremely important to prevent accident and protect worker and the public. One of well-known example that can go wrong is vapor gas tragedy. This disaster happened when highly toxic chemical called methyl isocyanate or MIC was accidentally released in industry plant. The accident clearly shows how dangerous poor chemical management can be, especially when safety measurements are weak or not properly enforced. To prevent such incidents, several chemical safety regulations were introduced. One of them, Manufacture, Storage, Import of Hazardous Chemical Rule 1989. This rule will focus to classify the hazardous chemical to keeping proper material, safety data sheet, and clearly labeling container with hazard symbol so that the risk can easily identified by the worker and people that work around the chemical. Another important regulation in Environment Act 1986. This act requires hazardous chemical to be stored under controlled conditions such as proper temperature, pressure, and the use of insect gas and inspection of the storage tank. However, in vapor gas tragedy, large amount of MIC were overstorage and refrigeration system were shut down and the tank were overfilled during that tragedy happened. Finally, the Chemical Accident Emergency Planning and Preparedness and Response to the Rule 1996 emphasized the importance of trained worker, clear emergency procedure, and the use of protective equipment. However, during the vapor disaster, workers were not trained properly and were unclear about the procedure, and the response was so slow that made the situation even worse. Move to failure in safety management. The Bhopal gas disaster did not happen just because of one mistake. Instead, it have resulted from many safety failures that built up over the time due to proper management decision and weak culture and lack of proper supervision. Firstly, there was serious technical and engineer failure at that time of the accident. The several key safety systems were not working and the MIC refrigerator unit have been shut down and both of the vent and scrubber of the flat tower were either underprepared and non-operational. Without this system, the toxic gas cannot be controlled once it starts being leaking to the public. Secondly, management and operational failure play major role. Poor maintenance practice and cost-cutting measure cause safety equipment to be deteriorate or disabled. Safety were not treated as priority and this allowed the dangerous condition to exist within the plant. Lastly, there was systematic and regulatory oversight failure. There was lack of regular inspection and safety standards that were not strictly enforced by regulatory authorities at that plant. This allowed unsafe operating conditions and continue for a long time without correct action.
Now we will move to the impact to people health and environment. We'll talk first about the impact to people health. The first one is effect on women by experiencing high rates of infertility, stillbirth, abortion, early menopause, and irregularities in menstrual cycle. This is because the toxic chemical exposed to them has reduced the amount of oxygen absorbed in their bodies and the babies. This also give impact to the babies, either it is unborn or already born babies. The already born babies doesn't have a proper immune system or immune defense to which led them to death, and the unborn babies their DNA has been disrupted, which led them to have several abnormalities when they have been born later, such as autism, intellectual disabilities, and several learning difficulties. The next one is survivor died not long after the gas was exposed, and some had suffered an irreversible lung damage. This is because the nearly 40 tons methyl isocyanate MIC has been sprayed all over the densely polluted area and violently moisturized in the lung of the victim, which led them to have intense shocking, breathlessness, and burning in the chest because the lung tissue has been swelled and filled with fluid. The exposure also scarred the lung tissue and reduced the lung capacity, which weakened their immune defense and led them to have several lung disease such as asthma and tuberculosis. The third one is increase in cancer mortality. This is because the victim has been exposed to toxic chemicals such as MIC and contaminated groundwater. The MIC has reacted with water and protein in the body, producing a toxic byproduct, which disrupt the normal cell by damaging the cellular DNA. The improper prepared DNA then cause uncontrollable cell growth, which led to cancer. The last one is the impact to environment. So the environment has been polluted way before the tragedy and never have a proper disposal yet. Thus, when the tragedy take place, it only worsen the condition by increasing the percentage and concentration of toxic chemical, which led to soil contamination, water pollution, damage to vegetation, animal death, and biodiversity. In this last part, we will discuss about the lesson learned from the accident. The first one is government should create a strict industrial safety to make sure a safety regulation is followed. For example, handling a hazardous chemical and make sure every system work properly, and also predicting every possible incident that could happen. This is due to the fact that one of the factors that lead to the Bhopal gas leak accident is that their safety system was poorly maintained and some of them were malfunction. The next one is industrial waste must be disposed safely to prevent a long-term environmental damage. A poor management of waste will lead to a long-lasting impact to soil, water contamination, and affecting the generation in the future. This has been labeled as one of the hazardous effects because it affects the aquatic life, and at the same time it affects the human health by having a food, drinks, and many more things that is made from those toxic contained ingredients. For your information, after the Bhopal tragedy, the factory was shutted down, leaving the site with full of toxic chemical without a proper disposal, which worsened the condition and the impact in the area. The last one is companies should be morally and legally responsible for the safety of workers and nearby communities for any possible incident. This to hold justice for the survivor and prevent the same tragedy or problem to repeat itself. This is because after the Bhopal tragedy, the responsible corporation were never fully held legally, leaving the victim and environmental impact without any adequate compensation or justice. This has shown that the failure in justice system just to hold powerful corporation accountable.